You're listening to Learning Leader Spotlight, interviews with corporate L&D leaders. On each episode, we sit down with key industry experts to discover more about what's happening in the world of learning and development, from current trends and insights to the most valuable lessons learned along the way. Join us for a fresh perspective on all things training and the best direction forward. Here's your host, Leanne Lankford.
Hi, welcome to Learning Leader Spotlight, the podcast where we interview the learning leaders of today to help the learning leaders of tomorrow. I'm Leanne Lankford, your host, the president of Training Pros. Training Pros is a learning and development contract staffing company where we like to say, when you have more projects than people, let us find the consultant to start your project with confidence. I am really excited to welcome my guest today. This is a longtime friend and colleague, Michelle Lentz. She's the lead strategist for AI and change management at Innovate-Elevate Strategies. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, Leanne. Thanks for having me on. Very excited.
We're thrilled. So for those of you who may not know you yet, which shouldn't be that many people since you're such a big influencer right now, how would you describe the work you do today?
Don't know if I'm an influencer, but I like that idea. I help organizations make sense of AI primarily for HR and L&D, because with 20 years in that area, that's where I see that there should be a lot of impact. I do everything from helping people build strategies overall for their organization, how to integrate the change so people aren't afraid, and how to deal with ethics and governance, bias and copyright in their work. So at the heart, it's about AI, but it's more about the people who are going to be using it.
Great. I know Training Pros has hired you to do some work with us, and I'm sure many, many companies are looking for someone like you to help them.
Fingers crossed.
How did your journey into AI and learning and development begin, and what keeps you passionate about that?
It's a long and winding road. I was at UPS corporate for 4 years, and at one point they offered a voluntary separation package, and we were getting to move cities. And I thought, this is a good time to switch up. What I didn't realize was that the job market was beginning its very tough phase. And it was all about the same time as ChatGPT 3 rolled out. And I thought, this is so cool. And I started using it for helping me with my resumes and researching companies and role playing. And this is back with 3, where there were a lot of hallucinations and incorrect information, but I was still seeing the potential. And the next role I had, I was able to really focus on AI strategy for other companies. And so now I'm out on my own, and I've been teaching a lot of classes on AI fundamentals. And my favorite thing is to watch that light bulb go on in someone's head. Like, here's how I can use this every day in my work and in my life. And that keeps me passionate, because sometimes it's overwhelming with all the information coming at you. So I just love really working with people and letting them catch on. And that's my favorite part.
If you're passionate about what you do, you don't actually do work, do you?
Correct.
What is one misconception that you hear most often about AI when you're working with the learning and development groups?
This is a huge pet peeve of mine, that AI can just create your content. And there are a lot of tools out there that do nothing but just create your content. And that can lead to very generic content. It can lead to less impactful training, less engaging training. It would bring us back to click the next button, which we were kind of leaving behind. So I love when people understand that use AI for your draft, use AI for feedback on your final training, but don't use it to generate all of your content. You can brainstorm with it, but that actual bulk of the content really needs to be shaped by the instructional designer.
Great. Can you share an example or two of how AI is already making a measurable impact in learning and development?
I'm actually working on a project right now, and I'm working on a learning audit for a company. And we're going in and we're analyzing all their learning and their structure-led training and organizational setup and everything. We have conducted so many interviews, 16 in-person interviews, maybe another 10 or so virtually, and there's more coming. So I have transcripts of all these. So first of all, AI is making my life easier because while I'm still taking handwritten notes on a digital thing, but we're still taking handwritten notes for what I think are very important. Yeah, exactly. What I think are very important things. I've also got the whole transcript being recorded. And then I run that back through AI because there's so much information. So I run that through AI and I ask it to pull out key points, to organize it, let me know. I ran all of them through it recently to get sort of a heuristic view of all of it and what really were the most important key points overall. And those are things that are saving me so much time. Writing a report, an overall report for this phase based on all of that, I would have spent hours and hours and hours going through that content. So this sped it up to a matter of like 2 days instead of a week or two going through it manually. So that kind of thing makes a huge difference. SME interviews, especially when they're on more complex technical topics, AI can explain that to you. And all of this is going to speed up your ability to write the content because you're not spending as much time diving into things you don't necessarily understand or pouring through the things that don't matter.
Okay. What have you learned about overcoming resistance or building trust with AI or in AI?
So the hardest part about AI is not the technology, it's your people. And if you don't, so I see these CEOs from places like Shopify. He got a lot of press because he released a memo that basically said, we're all moving to AI right now. We are cutting headcount. If you think you need headcount, let's figure out if AI can do it instead. Well, imagine the fear struck in the heart of those employees. Well, if AI can do that job, why can't AI do my job? Then what that fosters is fear and sabotage of any AI strategy, if they even have one. And it fosters, they won't use it. No one will use it. It's like, I'm not going to use this because I don't want to prove that AI can do my job. So the key is to acknowledge that fear and in a kind way, so your quick wins involve employees into how to shape the AI strategy and how AI is used. People trust what they've helped create. And then you start small. You start with a pilot. And this is something else I see fail. People do a pilot. They don't get the result they want in 3-6 months. So they just stop and declare it a failure. Well, the point of a pilot is to iterate and try it again. You learn from your mistakes. So maybe you don't see ROI in 3 or 6 months. Maybe you see it in 9 to 12 once people get more comfortable with the new workflows. So those are all things that I see happening over and over. No iteration on the pilot. Throwing AI at people without giving them a chance to work their way into it or help shape it.
Okay. Definitely lots of stuff going on out there with regard to trusting AI. Oh, well, but so there's all these risks around bias, copyright, transparency. I hear this all the time from our consultants. What role should learning leaders play in shaping the AI governance for their whole organization?
This is a passion of mine. I used to be very passionate about copyright and Creative Commons, and I spoke about that all the time. And so this is the evolution of that. I think learning in HR, in our position, we understand more what the people are doing, how they react to things, what will their usage of AI be? And I think you need an AI oversight committee that's going to include, and I won't remember everybody, but legal and IT, HR, L&D, and a CEO or CTO, some C-level person who has their hands in it. And there's probably more. And you could actually do a racy chart of who is responsible for what. But learning needs to be there because they're responsible for training everyone in the organization on how to use it. HR needs to be there because they're really responsible for helping. Well, what are the consequences of going against the governance? Then AI will be, or HR will be responsible for that. So we need to have, at the risk of saying this, the seat at the table for the, we've been saying that for years, right? But for an AI oversight committee, because we are so involved in how it gets rolled out.
Thank you for that. I'm sure a lot of people will be using that as part of their argument to get on with the AI governance committee. What uniquely human skills do learning professionals need to double down on with regard to AI becoming more common?
Curiosity, empathy, critical thinking, because AI does not take away your critical thinking. It will actually help you think more critically and deeper. And those type of things. AI can't do that. And this critical thinking part, you don't need to use AI for everything. I have a matrix out there, which is an AI decision matrix, and you can score it. What does it involve? Is it quick turnaround? Is it very rote and boring, basically? And decide what's good for AI and what really needs the more human touch. And then define your problem statement. Well, that takes critical thinking. And then decide, how am I going to work with AI on this? And what do I need out of it? And even the brainstorming, the feedback, that all takes critical thinking with the AI. There's lazy AI use where people just, again, generate all their content, pop it into a PowerPoint, and they're done. But then the critical thinking, that type of AI use, those are the skills we need to work on. And those are the skills we need, not just for learning and development, but the skills we need to train our employees on as well, because they need to know how to use AI effectively.
So where do you think AI is going to take learning and development in the next few years?
I think instructional designer roles are going to change. I think they're going to have to learn to work with more data and interpret more data. But AI makes it, I hate spreadsheets. AI makes it so much easier to interpret trends and data. You pop in a spreadsheet, and I no longer have to figure out things like pivot tables or graphs, because it'll do that for me. It'll analyze it and give me the trends. I can take that and create a story with it. And then from there, you create the training that's needed based on your measurements. And the other thing is, I think learning is going to become more adaptive. We've always had performance support. And I think this takes it to another level, because it will evolve into, oh, they're having trouble here. And AI will chop up the right thing you need where you're having trouble, as opposed to a guided workflow in the flow of work, just where you need it. And then again, we need to be very involved in building trust and governance and teaching people how to use it effectively.
All of that sounds great. One of the things I'm a bit older than most instructional designers in the world today.
So am I.
But when I was coming up through my education and all that, performance consulting was what we focused on. And e-learning costs about $1 zillion to do a 1-hour course. So we really didn't think e-learning all the time. We thought, how do we support the people at work to help them work better, faster? And what I hear you saying is AI as it becomes more and more used in L&D, that's where we're going to go instead of we need to build an e-learning.
I think so. I think, I was brought into UPS to be a disruptor. They were having like 10 days of e-learning or 10 days of instructor-led training, and they hadn't even thought about e-learning. So I'm like, well, we can shorten that by doing some e-learning. So that was, 5 or 6 years ago now. So learning evolves. And the more new technology that's out there, the better we can evolve if we're using it appropriately. So yeah, right now, people are probably going to create e-learning with it, but that will evolve into the performance support that I think it would work better, right? At least from a technology training perspective. There are some things you can never train with AI. I think sales training, you need to be face-to-face in role playing, for instance. So there are some things that just won't work that need humans, but
Fantastic. For L&D leaders who feel overwhelmed by AI, it's a lot. The change is incredibly huge. What's the best first step for them to take?
well, it is overwhelming. And if you look at all the information that's coming at you from all sides, and it's hard to be an expert in something that changes every week or sometimes every day. Last December, every other day, I think OpenAI was releasing something new. I was teaching a class and I was like, okay, I'm sorry, there's more new things. Uh, And I think right now you start small. You identify, well, here's a workflow and it's a pain. I don't really care to do it. And maybe AI can help us. And you figure out how you can integrate AI. And it may be something as simple as I have a calendar app where people can schedule meetings, for instance. Every time I accept a meeting, and sometimes I'll decline them, but every time I accept it, Zapier, which is like a bridge between different programs and it's AI, then it's triggered and it automatically sends an email with my Zoom information. So I'm not going in and doing that constantly. It's already on my calendar. They've got the Zoom information and it's all set. And I'm not going in and manually doing it. So just little things like that speed up your workflows, take away the annoying things, and you learn to use it slowly. So always pilot something very small and then work your way up. Oh, that worked. Maybe if I try it here. And I think that's the best way to get familiar with it. Ethan Mollick says you need to play with these things at least 10 hours to really just even get familiar on how to talk with it. So the more you experiment, the better you'll get and the more comfortable you'll feel.
I think that's good advice. And I know that's how I started adopting AI, was just let me just get in there and just see what it does. Ask
Right.
it questions, ask it to do things. I'm like, I don't like how that turned out. How can I change what I'm asking? That kind of thing. And of course, I still have a long way to go myself to learn how to really be a big user of AI and how to integrate it better in my company.
Well, measuring. No one's measuring how they're using AI. And the ones who are trying to measure it are not. They're just going, well, I don't see where we're saving money. And after like 6 months. And I don't know if it's always about saving money. It's about being more efficient and your productivity being better. And so everyone will experiment, but then you have to figure out, how can I really use this? And then you need to start measuring your time saved and how much faster your people are getting from various basic prompting to really proficiency. Do you want to get people AI literate or AI fluent, right? And how long will that take? And engagement scores, when you change the learning based on AI, are they better? Are they worse? And that kind of measurement isn't necessarily going to directly affect your AI, your ROI in 6 months. That they're more long-term measurements, and people aren't giving that a chance. But if you don't connect it eventually, to measurable value, it's just going to stay a toy instead of a very integrated tool or even a colleague in a way.
So as you know, we also work with consultants. We have a large talent pool of consultants. How can our consultants position themselves as AI ready so that they're more valuable to our clients?
I think there's a lot of difference. I know we've talked about this between AI hype versus the reality of AI fluency. And so a lot of people will be like, I've used Chat GPT when they're really just using it as a search engine. You need to probe into that. And I don't think it's important to be a coder either. Now, I've sort of learned to code. I'm not very good at it, but it's like French for me. I can read it, but I can't write it or speak it. So I can read Python, I can read machine learning, but I don't know. I couldn't write it to save my life. But it allows me to be able to talk to the technical side, to the engineers, and go back to the non-technical side and say, that's possible, that's not possible, and here's why. So I think having just a slight understanding of how the code works, you don't have to go be a coder, helps in really connecting your IT to the rest of the company. And then I think being clear about the risk of AI and transparency and governance and understanding the companies you're working with and what they've set forward so that you don't recommend something or do something that goes against their AI standards. And just in general, reading everything you can and playing with it, again, experimenting with it.
Well, thank you for that. You have been an amazing guest. You provided a lot of good guidance on AI, and anybody wanting to seek more, we're going to include your contact information in this podcast. And so Michelle is a consultant that we recommend all the time to our clients, and we're happy to have her on here. And that is it for this week's episode of Learning Leader Spotlight. Michelle, as a thank you to you, we're going to plant 5 trees in your name. That's our charity at Training Pros. We plant trees on behalf of our projects that we do with clients and consultants. And we've planted 5,000 trees to date. And it's something near and dear to my heart because I'm that person with bringing my own bags to the grocery store and, not using straws.
So are we.
Got my own reusable water bottle and all of that. And so that's our thank you to you for being our guest. And I hope that that makes you happy.
It does.
Well, you've been an amazing guest. And that's it for this week on Learning Leader Spotlight. Tune in next week to hear from another great learning leader.
Fantastic. Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for the latest episode of Learning Leader Spotlight, interviews with corporate L&D leaders. You'll find links in the show notes to any resources mentioned on today's show. If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave us a 5-star review.